Good morning. It's Wednesday, March the 30th, 2022. And this morning I'd like to talk about something that I wrote actually on Monday. And it has to do with the situation in the Ukraine, something I've been trying to process for a while. Usually the blog post is either a synopsis of a video I record, or the video is a synopsis of a blog post I've written, and one mirrors the other pretty closely. This time I'm not sure about that. I'm not exactly sure where this will go, because the things we're seeing in Ukraine are evolving, so quickly. It's cast a pale over all aspects of life, at least for me and Leslie and people that we care about, that care about other people. It's difficult, having been born at the end of the Second World War and having grown up with the memory of that conflict still very fresh in the minds of all of those who had to live through it. To see something so similar in so many different respects happen all over again. I remember studying in civics. They used to teach civics in school once upon a time. But I remember learning in civics about the prelude to the Second World War, especially the war in Europe, and the practice of appeasement. And I remember thinking to myself then, just as a student, high school student, thinking to myself that the outcome of that conflict could have been very, very different had the problem been addressed earlier on, immediately after Hitler took the Sudetenland, or before he invaded Poland. And you have to wonder how many lives would be saved. Now we're watching this conflict, this war in Ukraine unfold, and my fear is that we're becoming conditioned to the violence and the images that we see on the nightly news every day, or on the news every day, regardless of whether it's at night or during the day. And I remember thinking to myself, when Russia was amassing troops across its whole entire border with Ukraine, that this was not going to end well. And regardless of what Putin said, it was pretty obvious and very clear what the intention was. And I guess that's one of the things that I'm stressing over, is the peace process that's going on now in Istanbul, and the lies that I'm certain the Russian delegates have been ordered to share with the Ukrainian delegation. I know that I don't trust Putin to do anything other than what he believes is best for himself in this aberrated vision of a reconstituted Russian empire. And it bothers me. It bothers me on so many different levels. It's hard to articulate. One of the basic levels is that war is an absurdity in and of itself. I'm convinced that nobody wins a war, regardless of who starts the conflict or what's involved. All you can be relatively sure of is that there's going to be more death and destruction than anybody wants to evaluate. But I remember sitting in a class in college with a semantics class, study of words and meanings, and the professor, Dr. Roland Jones, who was really an important part of my early development as a human being. I took every class he taught, and he taught a number of different classes, unfortunately all graduate level classes. And I took those out of sequence, but that's a different column. We'll talk about that another time. But I remember him saying that as far as we know, the oldest recorded word for war, it was in Sanskrit and translated as to "I want more cows." It was strictly a matter of greed and avarice. And you have to wonder what exactly Putin and Putin's Russia wants to do with Ukraine if, in fact, the dog catches the car, right? If, in fact, they do secure some kind of a victory in Ukraine, there's nothing virtually left to govern. The whole country, for the most part, it needs to be rebuilt. And recognizing what shape Russia is in financially and what shape it's likely to be in the near future as the sanctions very slowly begin to tighten their grip on the country, that's just not going to happen. With any kind of luck, the Ukrainians will prevail. And that's another thing that I'm struggling with. And why are we not more involved in their success? And I understand the reasons. You can give me lots of reasons about not getting involved in a conflict directly. You can give me reasons about the fact that the consequences would be dire and that there would be, even more death and destruction, and it would involve NATO and the rest of the free world. And those are all arguments I remember so clearly from the civics class I mentioned just a moment ago, as arguments that were used by those individuals in Europe particularly, and some in the United States at the time, who were willing to appease Hitler's appetite for empire. And we see the same thing happening again. And I don't know who said those who failed to study history are doomed to repeat it over again. I think it was Toynbee, but I could be wrong. But isn't it the truth? I mean, this is a script we've already read. It's a play we've already seen. And shame on us if we haven't learned anything from it and we're not willing to take the actions necessary to do something about it. And yes, I do recognize that Russia is a nuclear power, as are we, as are many of the other nations in Europe and around the world. But you have to wonder whether or not Putin's likely to do something stupid, regardless, as his economy is choked into a slow and painful death. There's no telling what he's capable of and what he might do in desperation. So I don't know what the answer to all of this is. I'm trying so hard to work my way through it and to understand it on a more intelligent level, so I can articulate it better, if to no one else other than myself. But as I wrote at the end of the blog post, no matter what happens next, it's going to begin with an uncomfortable dialogue, and that whatever we do, whatever we talk about, whatever we decide, is going to bring with it a fair amount of pain and discomfort, displacement, more than enough for all of us to share at some point in the future. But it's pain and discomfort that I would much rather deal with in our own terms, on our own terms, at a time and place of our own choosing, rather than have someone else make that decision for us, for me. I'd be really interested in your ideas, so you know where to find me. In the meantime, stay well, take care. If you're qualified for that 4th booster, go and get it. I got mine. Leslie will be getting hers. Take care of yourself. Talk to you soon.